This is the Australian Butchers Guild podcast, brought to you by Meat and Livestock Australia, the podcast for passionate butchers.
Welcome to another episode of the Australian Butchers Guild podcast. This week's episode, we're going to be talking to Peter Bouchier from Butchers of Distinction down there in Melbourne, one of the best butcher shops in the state. Then we're over to South Australia. We're going to catch up with Chris Kelly from AMIC and find out what's happening in South Australia and WA. Then it's over to Rip Atkinson. Rip is the Market Information Analyst here at Meat and Livestock Australia to talk about everything sheep. The first guest this week we've got is Peter Bouchier from Peter Bouchier's Butchers in Victoria, the Butchers of Distinction. Peter, welcome aboard, mate.
Thanks, Doug. How are you?
I'm very well, mate. How's life down in Victoria at the moment?
Well, I think you can relate to it a little bit, although we've probably been through a little bit longer than you guys. But no, we're all coping and going to work as we do.
Yep, as we do. That's all we can do at the moment, mate. So make the most of it. For me, I don't have to go into the office every day, so that's a bonus. But I'd much rather be out there chin wagging with the butchers and finding out what's going on in the trade.
Yes, I could well imagine you would.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you into butchery a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Doug, I come from a small town in the Western District of Victoria, little one-horse town, one butcher shop, one pub, one post office, and the butcher shop was my father's. His brothers were also butchers. There was 4 boys. They were all butchers. So I grew up, I was only, 20 yards between the house and the shop. So, you spend a lot of time in and out the shop, and you'd even wake up, you'd hear the bandsaw going and things like that. As a kid, you put the mince through, you put the fat through, you learned to make sausages, and, in those days, you used to do tallow and things like that. And I never really intended to be a butcher. It was never really the plan. I left school and I was working on a farm, my uncle. That certainly wasn't my future either at the time. But
it's hard work, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it just wasn't me. And I had a brother in Melbourne who was working in a butcher shop, and they were in a bit of strife. They were short-staffed and one thing and another. And because I knew how to make sausages, do the mince and, general rouseabout in the back of the shop, father sent me down to give him a hand and things like that. So down I went. I had a sister and that living in Melbourne, so bunked in there and used to ride my bike to work. In the end, he just asked me to do an apprenticeship. So that's how it sort of happened. I went home and I said to Dad, I wasn't that keen on doing an apprenticeship, and as soon as I told the old man, he said, "You get back on the next train and say yes." That's how it all started. Yeah,
it's a pretty common sort of a start for a lot of guys, not necessarily having butchers in the family, but starting out working in a shop, doing whether they be a clean-up boy or after school sort of job, isn't it? So that was my beginning.
Yeah, it is very common. Like you often hear of guys who always they started clean-up boy in a shop at 14. They can see it's a bit of fun. It's a good atmosphere, the back of a butcher shop, I think.
Definitely is. There's good morale in most shops these days, I think. And you're in a man's world too. Like you're coming out of school and you're straight into a first job and you're seeing something new. You're learning something, and it's for blokes like yourself and me, it's a skill that we've learnt over the years. And you've got one of the best butcher shops, I think, in Australia. Really, there are a lot of great shops around, but you've got that. I don't know what it is. It's just got that real, it's the distinction, I suppose. That's in the wording that you use about your business. It's really got a great atmosphere, a really good name for itself, and you've done such a great job building that business up to where it is today. Did you ever think you'd ever get this far with a shop like that?
No, not really, Doug. I sort of, I've always enjoyed the trade, and I love the trade, and I still do. I remember as a young fella, there was some interesting shops around Melbourne, good quality shops, not far from where I worked. And, I'd often find myself looking in the opposition's window and looking at what they're doing, wonder why we didn't do it like that. And each suburb really had a good shop. When I think back to the days, there was Paul Borfus had a butchery, and Redlicks were out there, and Mallowcroft, and I used to just, enjoy watching them. And then you'd always take something away. I'm the sort of bloke who, even at my age now, gee whiz, if I don't learn something in a week, something's wrong. And I take something from everyone, and I love meeting people and listening to what they've got to offer. Everyone's got something else to offer. And I think back to the days, you're saying it's a man's world. Well, I tell you what, there's a lot of characters in those men, that butcher shops, and it was an eye-opener at times, but such great blokes, and they were so skilled. Some of those older butchers, they were very skillful men,
Yeah, they didn't have the same technology as what we've got today, like the tools that we have, vacuum packers and, the electric slicers that people have. It was very manual trade back in the early days. But to where it is today, it's come so far, and it shows in the quality of the products a lot of butchers are putting out today.
Exactly.
So, mate, you've got a young fella called Tom.
Yes, I got Tom coming through the ropes. Very proud of Tom and what he's achieved. Yeah, he's a good little fella. He gets up and goes to work, goes home and gets up and goes to work. I must admit, because of our operation, he does get moved around a bit, but he's good at it and he brings a lot to the table. And
yeah, no, you must be very proud to have a son like that in the business, being able to down the track, take over the reins, because it is a real family sort of affair, isn't it? You've got a lot of family working in the business.
Yeah, well, my wife's been heavily involved in the business right from day one. I have my daughter who's doing a food tech degree. And then I have my other daughter who looks after the marketing, and it is, it was always around the dinner table at night, how many we served and what we did and, what we were doing tomorrow. And they all worked, when they were at uni, they all worked. We had the David Jones store. They all had to work on Sunday. Well, I suppose they had to, but yeah, they worked every Sunday at David Jones through their uni and things like that. So
now, you talk about David Jones. What do they like to supply? I know that they've had a few butchers through their store in Sydney down there. I think it was in Bondi Junction store. They've taken that onto themselves. I've seen some of your products in there too, and they look pretty darn good too, mate. So how was that? How did that come about?
Oh, that came about over 20 years ago. I was just had a phone call out of the blue from the old regime at David Jones, and said, would I be interested in putting in, to be a concession in their store in Burke Street, Melbourne, and they were already also building one at Chadstone. And I sort of said, well, I wasn't all that keen on it, but I went along to the meeting, and then I just sort of kept going to each meeting and was a bit interested, and then they rang me up out of the blue and said, look, we want to give you the gig, would you like to take it on? So I took it on. So we were involved with them for 21 years or so, something like that, and thoroughly enjoyed every bit of it, really. We made a lot of friends within that city environment. It opened a lot of doors. It was great. And then they had Chadstone, which they closed. But, new owners come along, new boards, new chairmans and everything. It's a different ball game when you're dealing with it in that scene. But we certainly enjoyed it.
The shop at Toorak, mate, I've been there a couple of times, and it's the same every time I go there. It's an adventure. You walk into the store and it's so well laid out. You've got marble cabinets in the front there, and the staff are all your team, I suppose. We don't call them staff, the team. They're all nicely dressed, all well presented. Was that a hard thing to sort of get that culture into the shop? That's obviously something that's been built up over time.
Yeah, and it's taken a lot of time, and you've still got to keep working on it. I mean, when you go back to the days, in the early days, when I remember doing a small renovation and making the shop look smarter, and then looking out the back, and the guys got the shorts on and aprons that hadn't been changed for 2 days. And when I got tied up with David Jones, that's when we sort of started putting a policy through that everyone had to wear black pants and, black work boots and, things like that, and then the same aprons and, just sort of neaten things up. But, there was some guys didn't like it. When you told them they had a new job and they're starting Monday, you got to wear, clean black pants and a pair of black work boots and things like that. So, but in the end, now it's just all, that's what it is. And, when they sign their contract, they read through it and there's all those little things about dress. And
yeah, it makes such a big difference. Like you go into a supermarket and everyone's dressed the same. They're all neat and tidy, and they've got the same colour pants and shirts and black shoes, I suppose. But and especially today, it represents hygiene too, having that clean apron, the dress code, the clean shoes and everything. It's one of the things that I'm very hard on. Well, I was very hard on one of the shops that I managed for a while, is making sure that everybody adhered to the dress code, because it makes the customers feel more comfortable.
Of course it does. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And today, I suppose with COVID, it's just a surety. It's giving you some sort of surety there. The customers walking in, they feel that it's a clean place to shop, and they've got no problems.
Yeah, exactly.
So finding good staff down in Melbourne, how's that been?
Oh, well, it's very difficult. I mean, the thing about it is that, there's not a lot of guys coming through. It's hard. Most good butchers have a good job, are well paid by their employer. So it is difficult. I've had a lot of guys work with me. A lot have stayed. I've had them over, probably up to 15 years. 10, 12's not uncommon. We try and have a policy to get the right people, pay them well and look after them. And, as I say to my guys, instead of saying, he's not up to it, bring him up to it. Work with him. Why is he not up with it? Often I think it's a bit like picking a football team. You put your best man in the right position. If you have got a guy who can't do X, let him do something else. Let's work with him and just help him along and try and give him a little bit more experience where he is failing, to bring him up to speed, instead of just, pushing him to the corner and in the end he goes, well, it's not worth it. We are lucky we can move them around if they get a little bit jack of things. You can move them to a different store, or I can bring them to the factory, or, you can give them a different role. But lately we've employed, which I've done over the years, employed chefs, a couple of chefs, to work at the shop. So both shops have got a chef working in them now, which is good and brings it great for the customers. If you got a bit of a curly question and for one of the butchers, and they call the chef in, and next minute, they usually pretty bits of characters, and they get the meeting out of their hand and tell them, reading a few recipes and telling them what to serve with it, down to the wine and things like that. So, and the chefs, I feel, like it because they're used to working split shifts and do a breakfast and then back for lunch, and do a lunch and then back for dinner, and, finishing at all hours of the night. So, the butchering hours are fairly attractive to the chefs these days. So, we're happy enough to always have one on board.
Yeah, I think they're nearly a must in the shop these days, especially if you're doing a lot of value adding and cooking in particular. We spoke to Darren O'Rourke last week because he's a chef, he's a butcher as well, and he works out of Victor Churchill's and Vic's Meats in Sydney. And, I just think it's a no-brainer, to be honest, mate. Like, if you can't get butchers, if you can get yourself a chef, there's a lot of them out there that aren't working at the moment. They'd probably like a bit of a sea change or a change of pace, and at least they can hold a knife. They know what the difference between probably a rump and a sirloin and a tenderloin is, and they've got to walk up start.
I think, Doug, too, you've got so many, the section of your window, you've got a full windows that are value added that really you don't need a qualified tradesman to put them in anyway. You've got your steaks and all that sort of thing, but then you move along to your crumb section and your marinated. Yeah, you don't need that qualified guy. And the chefs you want to see them chop up the stir-fry veggies and do the garnish and look after your herbs and all those sort of. It's fantastic, really.
Yeah, I think they've got that garnish thing too. It also makes your window too, doesn't it? Like having the right sort of stuff. Like days are gone where we the old curly leaf parsley. We'd go down the Fruto and grab a big bunch of it and we'd throw it over everything and carefully place it in different things. And there's just so many other things you can use.
Yeah, well, I must admit I do get a little bit. I do look at the veggie bill a couple of times sometimes when I see what Tom's been spending, but
Is he filling the fridge at home, is he?
It does make a difference, and it does look much better.
Yeah, it certainly does, mate. So what's the future for the trade, mate? Where do you see it heading? We've lost a lot of butchers over the years since you and I both started. Like I started back in '77 in Adelaide, and there was a lot of butchers around, and we see now that I talk to the TAFE guys, then the RTOs, and they're having a good year this year with new apprentices coming through. But where do you see the whole trade heading?
Look, I think the trade's in great shape. I really do. And I really feel that, the smaller independent guys, we can offer so much more that the big majors can't. and that's where we've got to really concentrate on and do what the other. Like I was in the supermarket the other day, Doug, and I thought the quality of the meat was quite good. There were bits and pieces upside down, around the wrong way, absolutely horribly trimmed. And we've just got it all over them, then picking up something and putting in the basket, you can talk to people, you can tell them, you can suggest and things like that, I seriously think that, there'll be a strong shop on every high street. I think they'll trade very well. They'll offer a lot of pre-prepared, ready to cook. We actually own a commercial kitchen around the corner. We're doing more and more pies and lasagnas and potato gratins and soups and gravies. And look, I think it's unlimited. You don't need to go over the top. You only need a few of those little things. And I think the future's great. And I think that you'll get these successful shops and they'll pay good wages. They have to. You have to. You can't expect anyone to do a day's work without a good day's pay. And I think that's where it'll get to. And I think, the butcher will be looked on as, someone pretty good. He's earning good money. He's got a good job. I think the future's fine.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. It is in very good shape at the moment. Butchers, if my phone's ringing during the week from butchers, they've always got something to complain about. They're always going to have a shot at me about something.
Cattle prices.
But and we know where that's going to go. My phone won't stop ringing tomorrow. Yeah. But I just think my phone's been so quiet. The guys are too busy to either call me or they're very happy at the moment, and they're just getting on with doing the job. I hear so many great stories about butchers that are going so well at the moment.
Yeah.
They've really got their act together. So I think there's a great opportunity out there.
And I hope guys are running with it because restaurants are closed. People can't travel outside their 5Ks. They're all coming down to the butcher shop. And it's this is our chance now. You got to impress them. You want them back. Hopefully they're cooking at home and they're thinking, gee, that wasn't so bad after all. Let's do that again. And
they've got to maintain them, don't they? It's one thing to get the customer to come into the shop, but how do I maintain those customers? And I think nearly everything we've spoken about previously, right down to the uniforms, is a way of leaving that lasting memory. Like I'd like a lasting memory of going to a butcher shop to see them nicely dressed, not hairy legs standing behind the counter.
No, exactly. No, exactly. It's what you offer them and how you offer it and how you present the package, when you're popping it over the counter in a nice brown bag and things like that, that's what it's all about. Yeah,
exactly, mate. Well, mate, great to catch up with you. I hope the things change over the next few months. We can get back down to Victoria and catch up with you in person and have a beer with yourself and Tom and Sue, and I really appreciate your time tonight and all the very best.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks very much. Always a pleasure, and I'll keep you up to that beer, and hopefully it'll be your shout.
Take care.
Cheers.
And our next guest tonight is Chris Kelly. Chris is the AMIC State Manager for South Australia and Western Australia. Chris, welcome tonight.
Thanks, Doug. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
How's everything over there in South Australia at the moment, mate?
It's going okay over here. Fortunately, we're COVID safe at the moment, and we're free to get out and about. We're in a lot better position than you poor people over on the eastern states. We feel for you over here. So, but yeah, things are travelling along just nicely at the moment.
Yeah, just as long as we stay over here, hey, that's what I hear. Hey, mate, what's happening over there at the moment? What's happening in South Australia with AMIC?
Yeah, well, actually, in South Australia, we've got a bit on the go at the moment. We've just completed our Metro Region Sausage King competition last week and our Apprentice of the Year comp, which were very, very successful. I think we had 10 apprentices that participated, which was great. A very high standard, which is encouraging for the future of the industry. The sausage comp was just over the top. I think we had over 280 entries, which was absolutely incredible. So yeah, it was a big week last week here in SA. But the standard of the competitions is getting higher and higher each year, which is great. So I guess the encouraging thing is not so much the entries, but the spread of shops and businesses that actually entered this year, which was really pleasing. It was over double what it was back in 2019 when we had the last one.
Wow, that's fantastic news. I've spent a lot of time judging a few of the Sausage Kings around the country, and I've yet to do one in South Australia, but it's just been fantastic to see the way that the quality of the sausages that the butchers are turning out today. They're getting better and better. The flavours are becoming so unique. Haven't seen any full chili ones yet, but we got stitched up a few years ago up there I think it was in Newcastle, and somebody, I don't know why they did it, but they filled up a sausage full of chili for us, and I don't mind something hot, but boy oh boy, I tell you what, I didn't eat sausages for a little while after that.
Yeah, I can well imagine. Yeah, you're right. The humble sausages come a long way since, probably you and I were young apprentices, and the flavour combinations that they're coming up with now are just, they're mind-blowing. They're just, you think that they wouldn't work, and then you try them, and they blow you away. It's fantastic.
And what else is going on over there, mate? Many new shops opening up over in South Australia or Western Australia, or?
SA, there's not so much brand new shops, but there's been a few that have changed hands over recent times. A couple of the older time butchers have retired, and some younger guys have taken on their shops. Yeah, and a couple of other businesses that have got a few shops have sort of moved into some shops that were either closed or the blokes were looking to get out. So Western Australia is pretty similar. There's a couple of guys. There's a shop in Kalgoorlie actually that we highlighted in our Butchers Advocate coming up that's just do massive renovations. They've moved into a new premises, and that looks really good. Just one of those big one-stop shops for everything from your pet food through to your groceries, pretty much.
Wow.
And one of the other guys over there who's on our retail council in WA has just started up a new shop, revamped an old shop that was empty. I'm actually heading over there next week for their Metro Sausage King, so it'll be I won't get to Kalgoorlie, but I'll get to see the other shops that have sort of been rejuvenated since I've been there last.
Oh, that sounds good, mate. Yeah, it's been a few years since I've been over to WA. The butchers over there seem to be going as well as what the other fellas are in the eastern states, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they tend to, since the initial COVID onslaught, they've sort of kept carrying on because they're pretty happy that people are, holidaying within their own state, especially the regional guys sort of down, Bunbury and all down that way. They're sort of getting quite a few travellers come through. They're travelling along very nicely, and of course, their mining keeps going along, so it sort of keeps the economy ticking over, I think.
The Sausage King in WA, what are the entries looking like over there, or is it a bit early to tell yet?
Yeah, pretty good actually. There's still a few late ones. I've just actually received one just before we came on air, and they're looking like they're probably maybe 100 entries up on 2019. And once again, the amount of shops that have entered, because we've got a few new members over there, they've sort of jumped on board this year with it. So it's looking quite promising. So the regional one that we did earlier in the year was the same. It doubled the entries and the member shops that entered. So whether it's the break that we had during COVID where we did no competitions, or whether they see some value in the competition, which I like to think it's the latter, and they can sort of get some good leverage off it if they do manage to grab a win on one of the categories. What
about you have also having a apprentice competition as well, running that in conjunction, or?
Yeah, no, the apprenticeship comp, we're actually going to run that later in the year, closer to the state final in October, in the lead up to the dinner. With COVID, we've had to postpone a couple of things, so we just bumped that out a little bit. So I'll head over there in October for a little while and get the state final and the apprenticeship comp done over there. But we've got the nomination forms out, and there's already been quite a bit of interest in WA comp, which is great.
That's fantastic. So they can still apply, they can still enter the competition if there's still time?
Absolutely, yep. And the good thing this year is we've opened up all the apprenticeship comps to apprentices of all years, first, second, third, or if they do a fourth year, and it's open to members and non-members alike. It's good that the young blokes or young men and women can jump on board and have a crack at it.
Yeah, that's fantastic, mate. I like the idea of opening it up to all the apprentices of all ages, because I think there's some great talent out there. Some of the guys and girls have missed out over the years for varying reasons. lambs, but as their skills get better and better, I'm sure they appreciate the opportunity to get out there and show everybody what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a good spread at the South Australian one from first years through to third years, and the first years mainly entered just for the experience, to compete against people in their own age group, and even though they're not the same year, and do a bit of networking. And the atmosphere around the event with the people who participated was awesome. They all got on well and compared notes, and it was really good to see. We've got a couple of things in the pipeline here in SA to try and get a pre-apprentice program up and running through Department of Innovation and Skills. We did one of those in 2019, and the department have sort of approached us and see if we wanted to try and do another one. So that's in its. We're just planning the submissions now, and hopefully we can get that off the ground and get that kicked off probably early next year, which gives some people a bit of a pathway into the meat industry, which, as we all know, is a big shortage of trained butchers around. So if we can get some more younger people in the industry, I think it's going to be great.
All right, mate. Well, I think that just about wraps it up for now, but thanks a lot for your time tonight. If anybody wanted to apply to go in the apprentice competition, who do they contact?
Best thing is to contact me. They can give me a call. Obviously, when I'm over there next week, I'll sort of network with a few members and non-members and hand out some more nomination forms. So if we can get as many people on board with that, showcase the industry, it'd be great. Yeah,
exactly, mate. And if they can't get in contact with you, they can just drop us an email at butchers@mla.com.au, and we're quite happy to pass it over to you, Chris.
Awesome, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate your support.
Anytime. Well, happy travels over the next week, and we'll catch up with you next round.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Our next guest tonight is Rip Atkinson. Rip is a market information analyst here at Meat and Livestock Australia. G'day, Rip. How are you tonight, mate?
Yeah, good, Doug. Good. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your time. Mate, what do you actually do in the office? I see you walking around a lot and talking to a lot of the women in the shop. So what does your role actually involve, your day-to-day role?
Yeah, so other than that, I spend my time analysing and looking at the domestic supply and demand side of the sheep and lamb industry within Australia, ranging from Western Australia down to Tasmania up to Queensland, looking at prices, why the market moves the way it does, why supply changes, how that may impact your end of the supply chain, and all sorts of different things in between.
Yeah, right. Very interesting. So what have you seen this week? What's been happening in the sheep and lamb market?
In the market at the minute, what we're seeing is a lot of new season high quality lambs coming onto the market. So they're lambs that have been born within the last 3 to 4 months, and the quality of these lambs coming onto the market now and the volume of them, we traditionally call it the spring flush, and what that means is a significant uptick in supply. It's a seasonal occurrence, and it happens between now and sort of December every year, which is a pretty exciting time for producers to turn stock off, and then that follows on into different parts of the supply chain right down to where you guys are.
What are we looking at? We're looking at a pretty good spring flush coming through?
Yeah, so I've got a few statistics on that at the minute, actually. So we talk about yardings as supply volumes or an example of, and at the minute, New South Wales traditionally accounts for 50% of the country's lamb yardings. And what that means is in 2021 particularly, we've seen New South Wales lamb supply operate 20% stronger than 2020 year-to-date levels, and the equivalent of that is 630,000 lambs extra this year than what last year was. So that increase in supply we expect to continue and significantly increase moving forwards for the last couple of months of 2021, and that has or plays because of those economic supply-demand factors. It sort of impacts the way the prices move because of that such significant increase in supply. And at the minute, we have seen prices reach record levels for lambs nationally, But when you look at the historics of it and the way that, due to these supply and demand situations operate, we expect that price to soften a little bit moving forwards due to that significant pressure the supply is placing on the market.
Yeah, we see that from, I remember back in the days when I had shops, like you'd be coming into the end of August, sort of early September, we'd start to see a few of the new season lambs coming through. Prices were way up in that winter sort of period because there's very little supply, but as the supply lifts, the prices have softened a bit, so that's good to see, that's good to hear, and I'm sure a lot of the retailers out there will be quite happy to hear that.
Yeah, it's definitely the case. Exactly as you say, you talk about that winter price peak, and that is due to some supply constraints, which we've seen again this year, and it's occurred in the last week when I spoke about that national trade lamb indicator reaching record highs. But as that supply increases, we expect it to soften on the back of that pressure it places on the market.
That's fantastic news for a lot of the butchers. So, Rip, what's your background, mate? You from the land, or?
Yeah, I am. So I grew up on a sheep, cattle and cropping place about 30 k's out of Tamworth. So working with merinos and lambs right through to beef, and I've been involved in agriculture all my life. Studied it at university, spent time working in the Northern Territory, time in Queensland. So I've spent a lot of time in quite different environments, but it is my passion, and talking to you guys about it and other people within the industry that know it and don't know it is probably the most enjoyable and exciting experience of me being a part of it.
It's always good to see people coming, younger people coming through this industry and are so passionate about it. Obviously there's a lot of background there with you, and coming from a property, from a sheep producing family. We often think a lot of these people that working in industry have got no idea what's actually going on, but you're from the other side of that of the industry where it's produced from, and it's quite reassuring to know that guys like you are out there watching the ball and giving us the information and actually know what you're talking about, which is fantastic.
Yeah, no, I mean we're originally a fifth generation farming family, and I really enjoy having the conversations with you guys about what's going on, and I do appreciate and understand a little bit more intimately the supply and domestic agricultural livestock production systems, and being able to share that and communicate it with you guys at the retail end, I think is a very important conversation we and I would like to have, and I'm certainly open at any time for any one of your listeners that would like to talk to me or ask questions. I'd be more than happy, and I'd really appreciate the opportunity to have those conversations about my side of or my end of the industry.
No worries, mate. Well, I'll be pushing your name forward, so you'll probably get a few phone calls and a few emails over the next few weeks. So before we sign off tonight, mate, favourite lamb dish, what's that?
Oh, my favourite lamb dish would have to be crumb lamb cutlets. I can't go past them. We've had them forever, and they never get any better. They're always as good as they are. So yeah, no, without a doubt. Yeah,
mate, I've got to agree. I haven't had them for a while, but I might actually get the wife out there over the next few days to crumb a couple up. You just made me hungry.
Yeah, no, it happens all the time. They're unreal.
Good stuff, mate. All right, Rip, thank you very much for your time tonight, mate. Good to see you, and we'll catch up with you next round.
Mate, fantastic. Chat soon.
Well, there's another episode of the Australian Butchers Guild podcast. If you've got any other questions or need any other information, please don't hesitate to contact us at butchers@mla.com.au. See you next time for the Australian Butchers Guild podcast.
You've been listening to the Australian Butchers Guild podcast, produced by The Sound Business.